Hi, my name is Stephanie. I've had this YouTube channel for the longest time, and I've used YouTube for the longest time for entertainment, educational purposes, all sorts. Anyway, recently I've been thinking, why there are a lot of things that I I have in my head, which I share it with my friends. And I thought, actually, some of these things, people might be interested in it. Um, so I thought, why don't I share it? I mean, you might not be, and it's okay. And so a lot of the topics I'm gonna talk about, it's gonna range from politics, sociology, psychology, a lot of humanity-based topics. You might enjoy it, you might not enjoy it. It's up to you. And a lot of things I'm gonna speak from a neutral point of view, try to anyway, or unbiased point of view. I'm going to try and speak it in, you know, with some open questions just to get just to get people thinking rather than black and white statements. Actually, some may have black and white statement, but generally, yeah, open in questions. Um, I guess I'll start with languages. Have you ever thought how fascinating languages are? Because it's essentially all languages. It's just sounds from the mouth. The only, what makes the sound different is where our tongue touches the roof of the mouth and it creates a different sound. The mouth movements and the that's it. And it creates such unique sounds, which is then translated into words, sentences, expressions. And have you ever thought how much language has an influence in the way you think, or the way we think, all of us think. For example, English is a very industrialized language. It's a very mechanical language. I mean, yes, of course, there's a lot of romance, there is a lot of poetry, but still, there's a lot of words I find in English. When you try and explain it, it sounds very exotic. For example, things in relation to nature. And I think, why is that? Is it because English as a language was developed in Europe? It was developed during industrialization. So there was, a lot of these nature words were borrowed, maybe these concepts were borrowed when the Europeans went over to Asia, South America, Africa during the colonial period. And is that why sometimes in English, in a certain things you say, it sounds so far away in relation to nature? Whereas when I think, my native language is Malayalam, and in Malayalam, there are so many words in relation, there are so many songs, poems in relation to nature. And it's so beautiful to hear, and it's almost nearly impossible to translate it in English. It's like it's a foreign concept. So somebody who's from a small town in England, it's nearly impossible for them to understand because they haven't had the lived experience. Same way as somebody who's born and brought up. Malayalam is a language spoken in the southern state in India called Kerala. And I think, somebody from a village in Kerala, it would be so hard to explain to them in Malayalam regarding, let's say, the concept of um, uh, identity issues arising from multiculturalism because Kerala is a state that is it's not very multicultural. I mean, it is in terms of its religion, but there aren't huge differences, unlike we see here in Europe or in America. So again, um, language, the way you see the world, like so much how you see the world is perceived by the words that we know. And language also, it teaches you a lot about the people's psyche, how why they think that, how they think that. And it teaches language teaches you about so much you can figure, you can understand it from the land where it originates from. Like for example, yeah, in the language, it has stories, traditions, customs, um, folklore, mythologies in relation to that land where it's from. Um, I find it increasingly sad. A lot of languages in in this world are getting erased because not many people are speaking it, or because there's a huge migration. Um, a lot of people are moving to the West, and so when the children are born, they're not taught their native tongue, um, or the parents' language. And we're living in an increased globalized world where English is big. I mean, look, I'm speaking in English right now. Um, I can speak other languages, but I still, a lot of these things, for example, it's almost impossible um for me to explain it in Malayalam. I guess I can actually, I can if I tried, really tried. But yeah, due to globalization, and it is really important to preserve languages because if you don't preserve languages, then history at risk of dying, ancestors at risk of dying, the stories, and land's stories risk of dying. So I would always say learn a different language. It opens up a whole different world, whole different way of thinking. It will help you understand people better. It will help you understand the world a, a lot better. Um, it's fascinating. I would say if you're interested in it. No, if you're interested, language is important. Languages are important. It's an important way that we communicate. Um, I've seen it in kids, in little kids, or in adults where they're limited in words. They can't really express themselves because there's a there was a lack of development, and so how extremely hard it is for them to express how what they think and how they feel. Um, if we don't have a linguistic grasp, you're always stuck in the same way of thinking. You're hearing the same words all the time. So it's really important. Even if you only speak one language, it's so important for people to read more, listen more, different topics. It opens up new pathways. I rambled on a bit. I'm not really going to edit it, and I'm going to try and make this in one go. And yeah, thanks for listening.